In a world where parents and children are so busy, practicing yoga with your family provides happy, healthy, quality time together. No TV, no devices or duties, just you and your kids. My guests today, Linda and Kailyn Kehoe, are mother and daughter. They've been practicing yoga together since Kailyn was a youngster. Sharing their practice has not only strengthened their bond, but provided so many useful tools for their well-being. I find their relationship so heartwarming, and I know you will too. So let's get started. Welcome to the Youthful Older Yogi Podcast. I'm MJ Waddell, your yogi host and founder of Share Yoga. I've been practicing, teaching, and loving yoga for over 25 years. I'm an advocate of movement, creativity, and staying healthy in mind and body after 50. And so are my guests. It's never too late to start, and there's a lot of healthy years ahead. So let's start now. Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to the Youthful Older Yogi. I'm MJ Waddell, the creator and founder of Share Yoga, and I've got two guests today, which is a bonus. I'm calling this episode Family Connection. I have a mother-daughter team. They are Linda and Kailyn Kehoe. And Linda has had many titles. She's been an event coordinator, corporate event coordinator. She's been a real estate agent, of course, a yoga teacher and a yoga practitioner, a wife, a friend, a mom. And today with her, she has her daughter, Kailyn, who just received her newest title, an MBA. And she is back from Keuka College, and she is joining us today. And the reason I had Linda and Kailyn on the episode on this podcast is because I saw a post from Linda, and I think you were doing stand-up paddleboard yoga, and you'd posted a picture of Kailyn, and it said, "I'm so grateful that my daughter enjoys yoga practice as much as I do." And so it's so heartwarming. So I wanted to get you both on so we can get perspectives from the older youthful yogi and the younger youthful. She can't be older. She can't be the older youthful yogi. She's the youthful yogi right now. So thank you, Linda and Kailyn, for being on the podcast.
Thanks. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, well, let's just start right in. So I'm going to start with you, Kailyn. So tell our listeners your first memory of practicing yoga with your mom.
Yeah, so she took me to my first yoga class. I want to say I was 9 or 10. I was probably in like 5th grade. And I believe it was a class meant for kids because I remember going with some of my other friends. It was at a studio that she practiced at and trusted the teacher and took us there. So I remember going with her and a couple friends. And then I think I would even go to some classes with you that maybe weren't meant for kids, but you would just let me join and keep up with you guys. So I do have some vague memories being, like I said, 9 or 10 years old. And then probably from that age until about, 17, 18, I was on and off. I wasn't practicing regularly, but sometimes I would go with her, but it wasn't anything regular until I was a little bit older in college and then started practicing more regularly.
That's wonderful. And do you have any vague remembrances of how you felt after yoga when you were that young, or can you remember?
I don't necessarily remember the feeling afterwards back at that young age, but it's funny how I remember the basics of yoga and things I learned at that age that I still use in my practice today. So even on a hard day when I'm having trouble like meditating or, letting thoughts pass in my class, I think back to when I was like 10 years old and my teacher was saying, the thoughts are like clouds, let them pass, let them pass. And it's like that dumbed down version for a 10-year-old really helps me today because it really laid out the basics. So I still think back to a lot of things I learned at that age in yoga. It's hard for me to remember the feeling afterwards, but I always enjoyed going with you.
Well, I have something to tell you, Kailyn, is I still say, let the clouds pass. They're just passing. So it's, maybe I'm dumbing it down for the older generation, but I still say that because it's true. So thank you for sharing that. And Linda, we know when you first introduced Kailyn to yoga, and do you remember, was she willing or was she resistant? Did you have to drag her or say you're going to this class, or how did that happen?
Yeah, no, she was willing to go, but what she wasn't really receptive to was if I had some suggestions for her to, do something different. She just didn't want to hear it from me, only from the instructor, which, I get it because, that dynamic, mother-daughter dynamic, sometimes it comes across as criticism. So I just, learned over the years just to step back. And if she was making a mistake on the mat, if the instructor saw it, let her correct it. And, she learned her own practice, and she's built it, and it's awesome. And I'm proud of her. And it was because she was interested, not because I forced it on her.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
sometimes I think when parents might force kids to go and try something, they actually like it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's okay. But I know you didn't force her, but that's, and we always, well, not, I'm speaking for myself. Whenever my mother told me something, I was like,
Right.
no. But if someone would say the exact same thing that was my teacher or something, be okay, yep, good.
Yeah.
Got it. I don't know what that
Yeah.
is, but it's just human nature, I guess, mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kailyn, can you share with our listeners how yoga has helped you through some challenging times at college, which you just recently graduated, correct? You're just a recent.
I graduated from my undergrad a year ago. And then I just graduated this past May from my graduate program. So during my undergrad is kind of when I would say I got into practicing more regularly. If I was home on a winter break or summer break, I would practice more regularly with my mom. And then I'd go back to school, and I was in a very rural area where there wasn't access to a lot of studios or anything that was like a regular program. But I definitely had, it's college, they're challenging years. I wasn't necessarily fitting in, and I just kind of spent a lot of time by myself. So I found activities that I like to do by myself. So going back to school after one of my breaks being home and practicing regularly, I was just really desperate to find yoga down by my college campus. And like I said, very rural, it was hard to find. I was scouring Google, Facebook groups. I was finding people's names that have taught events nearby, and I was emailing people, just trying to find a teacher. I was willing to do a weekly practice in someone's house if they were offering it. I just really wanted to find that. So eventually I connected with this one woman, and she was teaching. It was maybe not supposed to be, but it was more of like a senior program at the rec center of a church, basically. But I spent my Tuesday evenings there. I was the youngest one there, and it was a very restorative class, but it was such a needed mental and physical break for me.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed being, like I said, it was just kind of my escape away from things I was dealing with at school. So it was good to find that for myself. And it definitely was a good escape I looked forward to every week.
Yeah.
Great. And what were your friends' attitudes? Or did you share with your friends that you practice yoga? Or what did your friend, was it cool to work out? Was it cool to meditate? What was the attitude of your friends at that time?
Yeah, I think the day we live in now, I see a lot of people being really interested in active lifestyles. I think social media and people recording their workout routines or their daily routines and showing how active they are really has had a positive impact. I think a lot of people are inspired, motivated to stay active and work out. At least that's my experience with it. So I do think there is a good stigma around exercise, yoga, whatever it might be. I know even in high school, in college, mindfulness and yoga was really brought into athletes, but also the classroom. I remember in like high school, AP physics, we did a physics lab around a yoga pose, and we were talking about like the force of gravity in the pose and everything. So it was brought into my classroom and a lot of the athletics around my schooling. So I think it was definitely more normalized and kids were participating in yoga. So yeah, I never heard any negative attitudes, but again, I also surround myself with people that have like interests. So to my friends, it's cool, but I don't know about everyone else.
Yeah. Oh, I love that science class. That's amazing. I love
Right.
hearing that it's normalized. Because I think just mindfulness, well, that's a broad term, but learning awareness and learning how you can join your mind with your body and actually know what's going on physiologically and mentally. That's amazing that you had that teacher
Mhm.
in that class. I love it. I wanted to pop in to thank you for listening to the Youthful Older Yogi. It's season 2, and I'm so excited to bring you more great guests, education, and ways for you to stay youthful in mind and body after 50. If you love the show and want to help me make it even better, please consider becoming a supporter. You get to choose how much and how often you give, and there's no commitment. And remember, I donate a portion of every dollar I receive to charity. For 2024, I've chosen UNICEF. Just click the support button in the show notes. And just as helpful is sharing the show with other youthful older yogis. Thank you again so much for listening. And now let's get back to the podcast. Linda, I want to ask you now. So for your practice right now today, what are the most apparent benefits, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, or a combination of all of those?
Definitely a combination of all, but definitely physical first because, as you age, as I age anyway, I wake up, I'm pretty stiff. I mean, little arthritis going on and whatnot. So I need to move. My body tells me I need to move, even though I don't feel like I can. But once I take a class in the morning, I'm so much clearer. My mind is clearer, but mostly my body just feels better and I'm not as achy. So I think physical is the most impact, but then throughout the day, it really sets the stage for the rest of my day. I do prefer to work out when I do yoga. I like it better in the morning. It seems to stay with me throughout the day. But I'll take a class anytime I can work in my schedule. So
yeah, well, I definitely gel with you on the stiffness of waking up in the morning.
right.
It's as I age also, it's like I get up, I stand there for a moment. Sometimes I shuffle. How's it going today? So I'll do definitely some morning stretches just to, yes, feel better. So and for me now, of course, the physical, but also I find a lot more mental clarity now when I practice. Maybe just because, you and I, we've been practicing a long time. And it's not so much for me about how I do the poses, it's how the sensation of the poses move through me now, or I feel something from the pose. And usually it's, yes, physical, of course, whether it's a very strong pose or a flexibility pose or whatever the pose is. But I look now mentally to it and see what the mental vibrations are when I do my practice. I'm loving it. It's so different than when I started. I'm like, oh, can I do a headstand? Big deal. So it's great. And so this is a question for both of you. During your day-to-day life, do you find that any of the yoga philosophies weave their way into your day that you notice?
You want to go first? Yeah.
I would say I definitely I try to ground myself in stressful situations in my day to day. Like, for example, I was, a little worried about a meeting the other day and I just took the 5 minutes before I hopped on the call to go into Tadasana and just kind of ground myself and find that power. So I do, in that sense, I find it calming when I'm stressed or nervous in my day to day. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we always talk about power pose, going into it and taking some deep breaths, whatever, before a stressful situation. But I find myself more about reflecting, like if someone's being, I don't want to difficult, or like if they're projecting their issues on me, and I try to pause. I don't always, but I try to pause and understand, like, where are they coming from? What kind of day are they having? It's not about me. They're not angry at me. So I try to come from a place with compassion. It's not always the case because if I'm having the bad day, I give it right back. So just being more aware, I guess, is being aware of, what the other person's coming or going through, and kind of maybe thinking about it through their eyes, and then kind of, making the situation a little calmer instead of, adding to the stress of it. So
yeah. I agree. Yeah. It's learning how to be less reactive. I think that's what I've learned mostly, because I come from a family that's very reactive and or just blurt out. I'm a non-blurter now. I don't blurt.
Yeah.
I take a breath and I think, well, their experience is different than my experience, and it's not a personal thing. But there are challenging, especially in today's world. Boy, there's some challenging moments where also I ask myself, should I say something or should I remain silent? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's I don't know. But those are the tools of yoga that I think have resonated the most with me about just learning my awareness of how I react. And physically, if my blood starts to boil or I start to sweat or something, I'm ready to blurt. I'm just like, hold the blurt, just hold it.
Yeah. Building off that too, something I'm trying to work more into my daily life is kind of figuring out where to channel my energy or not waste energy on things I don't need to be wasting energy on. So that is another part of my practice that I am trying to get better about incorporating in my day to day. But
yeah, it's just interesting. Yoga is such a vast topic, and there's so many parts of yoga that come in, weave in different seasons of your life. So it's just, and that's what I love about yoga. It's an ongoing learning process. You never wake up one day and say, I know everything about yoga. So that's what I love about it most. And Kailyn, can you tell us how your 94-year-old grandmother has been an inspiration to you?
yeah, definitely. So my mom's mom, she'll be 94 in a few weeks. And she goes to her little workout classes a couple times a week. She goes to the dance club. She's very active. And I think growing up with her, even though she was an older grandmother, she was always very active and would kneel on the floor to play games with us and go for walks together. So I think seeing that, I mean, we all know that the way you treat your body, it will reward you later on in life, but I think she's a very good example of that in our lives. So I always try to stay active because I've seen how it has paid off for her. Cognitively, physically, it's just really good down the line to stay active. And I think that inspires me to keep moving on the days I don't want to.
Well, it looks like the 3 generations it's passed down. It's doing really good work between your grandmother, your mom, and you. And then hopefully you can pass it on if you ever have children. So that's wonderful. My dad's 93. He just was visiting here last week, and I just got a voicemail from him. He's driving back. He drives from Florida to Rochester, and he always talks about the traffic and so, but he's very active and he bike rides, and it's good. You just keep moving. I think if you keep moving, because bodies are meant to move. And I think as we move into our later years, sometimes people think, oh, I'm just gonna sit down and relax. And I'm like, no. You can relax while you're taking a walk on the beach or riding your bike or going on a tour or something. Like, don't stop. That's when people kind of go into decline. So I'm so glad that you had a grandmother and a mom that are very active and promote healthy living and movement. That's great. And Linda, how are you experiencing this season of your life? I mean, is there anything surprising to you about as you move into your later years, whether it's physical or mental? How's it going?
It's going okay. I mean, there's days that I'm surprised that I see, a change, either it's my skin or my hair or whatever. But, I'm trying to approach it with this decade. Well, I'm going to be 59 in a couple weeks, but I'm approaching it with grace. I hope, then I also am choosing what to spend my time and energy on. And one of them I decided was not to color my hair anymore. So I'm going to just go with it and see where it takes me. And then I gain back a lot of time and maintenance and all that. And just kind of embracing, I don't love everything about my new body, but, I have the tools. And if I can be a little bit more disciplined, I can work back to the shape I want to be in. But I definitely see some extra rolls and carrying my weight differently and all that. And one thing I am mad about is I can't do crow. Something's going on with my body. About a month ago in class, I always can drop into crow like that, no problem, hold it for a long time. Can't do it. my balance is off and I am so mad. So I keep trying. And I'm going to get through it. But I'm like, when did this happen? And why did it happen? And I haven't changed anything. So something's off. So,
Yeah, I think I'm in the same position as you. I can't do malasana. And for those of you listening that aren't yoga practitioners, crow pose is an arm balancing pose where you're down on the ground and you put your knees up on your triceps and you balance on your arms. It's you need strong core to do it, and yeah, it's not as easy for me to do crow, but I can't do malasana anymore, which is a squat. It's like a deep
mm,
yoga squat because something is not right in my hip joints or something. There's a tightness or a stiffness. So yeah, my practice has changed. My body has changed. I'm fortunate I don't have a lot of gray, so my maintenance is more on highlights. So, but yeah, it's sometimes shocking as we move into our later years because you haven't changed a thing about anything you're doing, but your body's changing regardless because of the hormones, the hormonal change. And it's like, it can be maddening because you haven't changed anything and all of a sudden your body's changing whether you like it or not.
exactly. Yeah.
So I understand the frustration and thank you for sharing that. um, well, let me talk to you, Kailyn, about are you 21, 22?
21.
21. So I'm trying to think when I was 21, I was already out of the house. I was working professionally. I was just loving adventures. I was loving all the new adventures. How are you feeling about being 21? Because 21 is kind of like that. Oh, I'm 21 now. I think well, when I was growing up, 18 was drinking age. So it was all about drinking. It was just so stupid. But how do you feel about 21?
Yeah, I like where I'm at right now. Done with school. It's really weird this time of year. It's the end of August and it's my first year not starting a school year at the end of August. So it's really a weird feeling, but I've been working full time since April, living home still, but I really like where I'm at. I think I am 21 and a lot of people at 21 are, if they're in school, maybe a junior or a senior in undergrad, but I graduated early and I was young to begin with from having a late fall birthday. So I feel like I've grown up a little bit quicker in that regard. Like I do have a master's degree and I do work full time already, and I am 21. So in that regard, I guess I don't feel like maybe the typical 21-year-old that got excited to drink at 21. I was more focused on like, all right, so I'm saving because I want to move out and I'm finding my job and I'm interviewing and I'm doing these things. So I kind of had a little bit of a different trajectory in that sense, but I do really like where I'm at right now. It's a weird transitional time a little bit because I am home and working full time. So it's different. A lot of people in my boat would probably be in their first apartment or something, but I'm young and I'm living home and I like it. I can't complain.
No, I don't think, when I was growing up, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. So nowadays, it's like, I think it's a different time. And I think a lot of 20 somethings and even 30 somethings are still living at home, and it's multi-generational and there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm so glad you feel good about it. I want to ask you, Kailyn, do you think you will always practice yoga?
I hope so. I think the cadence of it will change throughout my life. Right now, I'm lucky enough to be able to practice 5 times a week if I want to. I'm 5 minutes away from a studio that I belong to, and I can practice pretty regularly with my schedule, but I know that won't always be the case. So I hope to always keep it in my life, even if I can only make it once a week during some parts of my life. I'm sure that will be the case, but
Yeah, and I think, Linda, you may agree with me here. Sometimes yoga just leaves your life not voluntarily, but because of life situations and things. But there's something because I didn't do yoga probably for about, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe, of dedicated practice because of I was going through, a heartbreak. So, um, and can you relate to any of not a heartbreak, but something that pops up in your life, Linda, that where you just you can't have the time, or you don't even have the motivation to roll out your mat?
Yeah, so I am fortunate that I have a lot of good opportunities come my way, and I love to work. So I found myself in a position where I love my job, I love what I do, but trying to squeeze yoga in became very stressful. And I'm like, I was stressed trying to fit this in, and I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to be. So I reassessed, cut back my work hours, and am able to go to yoga more often. And that's, I'm lucky that I can do that, and I will always do that. So it's more important for me to do that than to make money, be honest with you, because my health is important. And as I age, that's where I want to spend my time, is more focused on my health. And I can have both. It's a nice balance. I can still work and help other people and help myself, and then still practice. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And you taught for a time, Linda, and I know right now, I don't think, are you teaching now? Not now, but I think
um,
you shared with me that you will eventually go back to teaching as well as practicing.
Yeah, I will. I love it. I just feel like if and when I teach, I want to be able to deliver a great experience. And I just don't have the time to dedicate towards creating that experience yet. So I don't want it to be a job. I want it to be a hobby that I share with others. And I'm just not in that stage right now. So I enjoy taking a class way better than teaching it at this point. But
Yeah.
I'll eventually do it. I'm hoping that Kaylin will eventually get her
I want to.
certification, and in the future, maybe do something together, maybe not, but it will always be part of my life in some way.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of yoga. It can weave in and out of your life when you need it, when it's right, when you want to teach. I only teach 3 classes a week. Two are
Yeah.
pool classes. They're ending in August. And so I teach online and privates. And the same thing. I was teaching full time when I met you, Linda, and
Yeah.
I was burnt out.
Sure.
Like, it's hard to teach. People think it's, oh, you're a yoga teacher, how wonderful. I'm like, no, it's pretty stressful. It's like,
Yeah.
I once had a teacher that said, you should never give 100%. You should give 80% when you teach and keep the other 20% for you, because
Nice.
most of us are givers, 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 and
Yeah.
I was that too, because like you said, you want to deliver the best experience, and you
Mhm.
go home going, oh, just like,
True.
I don't feel, I'm exhausted. I don't feel, enlightened or lighter. I feel like, oh, I got another class in 2 hours. So
Right.
I understand that, finding that balance. So that's great. Just a couple more questions. Uh, Kaylin, currently, what's your favorite yoga pose? If you have one.
Hmm. I I'll go simple and say tree. I like how I can challenge myself to any degree with it. It's kind of like one of the basics, but you could make it more challenging. And I also just find myself in tree pose like at the randomest times throughout the day. Like I'll be in a meeting and I'm at my standing desk and I'm standing in tree pose for some reason, or I'm like cooking and I'm standing like that.
Yeah.
I just find myself in it a lot. So I would have to say tree.
Yeah. And I think you said an interesting thing. You'll keep it simple. Tree pose can look simple, but I don't think any pose in yoga is actually simple. I think, yes, when I first started tree pose, there were some flexible poses that felt very simple to me. Um, but then as you practice and you teach and you experience, there's so much complexity in all the poses
Mhm.
that that you learn about. So, and tree is such a beautiful pose, not only of grounding but of expanding,
Mhm.
and learning how to deal with when life throws you off balance or you get the rug pulled out from. There's so many teachings from all the poses. So
Mhm.
I love tree, and I'm glad that you love tree.
Yeah.
And today, whenever I'm going about, I'll see how many times I stand in tree.
I really find myself in it doing the weirdest things,
No,
like brushing my teeth, like just
Yeah.
I'm always standing like that.
that's awesome. I love it. I love that you're aware of it. And Linda, how about you? What's currently your favorite pose?
There's so many, but I think I like the seated spinal twist for me, because it does give my spine a great stretch, which is much needed. And then it calms my mind a lot. Um, yeah, I just always feel good about just a lot of twisting for me helps. And it also helps with digestion and all that. So
Mhm.
I tend to feel good after that.
Yeah, twists are actually my twisting is the most challenging me, standing twists.
Oh,
Supine twists, seated twists, okay. Standing twists are so hard for me because I feel stuck
hmm.
when I'm twisting. And that's why I always do twists in my own practice. But I'm taking a course from Jason Crandall, and he suggested that when you're doing a standing twist that you just widen your base so wide instead of, how we say railroad
Oh,
tracks. He's like, widen, 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 and then you'll feel more free. And it actually works. He's like, so that's how I'm approaching my standing twist now. It's amazing. I love it. So I'm not so going into it like, oh, I got to do a twist. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I get to do a twist. So
Wow.
love that. All right, last question. This wasn't, I always send people the list of questions. This is not on your list. And usually the question is framed as knowing all you know so far and through all your life experiences, what would you like to tell your younger self? But I rephrase the question into
Uh-huh.
knowing all that you know now and all that you've experienced in your life, what do you want to tell your future self? And I'll start with you, Caitlin.
Mm.
Okay, so I feel like this is kind of taught to me with just yoga in general and being in poses and being able to challenge yourself to whatever degree you want. I think you get out of life what you put into it. The same way with a pose, if you put more effort in and you're trying to challenge yourself, you will challenge yourself. If you need to take it easy, you can. So just you'll get out of life what you put into it, and that does keep me motivated and keeps me working hard. But then also allows me to take breaks when I want and just I understand the consequence. It's not going to reward you the same way. So yeah.
You
Yeah.
are a very smart young woman, Kaylin. I
Thank
love what you're telling your future self. Right. I wish I had that that
Yeah.
presence when I was 21. So thank you.
Yeah.
What about you, Linda? What would you like to tell your future self?
Well, I think, it's what I've built up so far. And that is, life is a reflection of what you put into it. And you'll get back what you give out. And so just very similar to what Kaylin just said. I mean, and it's true. And it's just as a mom, I mean, I'm just so thrilled that she picked up on it at 21, what, took me decades to figure out. Um, so, that's a blessing to me that I was able to hopefully instill a little bit of that into her and just watch her grow. So for me, it's just, take life one day at a time and just kind of roll with it. It might not go as I planned, but, it is how it's meant to be. And mindset is huge. You have to have kind of a flexible mindset and kind of roll with things, even if you don't like it. So,
Yeah, I agree 100% with all of that. And I just want to tell both of you that it's so lovely to see the relationship that you have, regardless of yoga. It's just lovely to see that. And I'm so honored that you are on the podcast today. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I can't wait to see if you start teaching together. That would be an
mm,
amazing, mom daughter yoga. I don't know. What would you label that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Family connection, just like this family connection yoga. So thank you so much, both of you, for spending the time and sharing your insights. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
We enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Take care now.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. For more youthful and healthy information, subscribe on my website, shareyogawithmj.offeringtree.com, and receive my monthly newsletters. Or if you know how to navigate social media, find me on Facebook /Mary Jane Waddell. That's Jane with a Y, Jayne, and Instagram at Mary Jane Waddell. Remember, Jane with a Y. This podcast would not be possible without the help of my editor, Dan Jones from Cocoa Beach Productions. You can find Dan at cocoabeachweb.com. And of course, thanks to my generous guests who share their time and youthful wisdom. Remember, the Youthful Older Yogi podcast is presented solely for educational, inspirational, and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician or other qualified professionals. Okay, yogis, stay well, stay youthful, and keep sharing yoga.